Audio test one. Audio test one. Audio test one. Audio test one. That'll work. Cell phone near microphone. Not good idea. I hear beep 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 beep. Don't do that. Or at least put it in airplane mode. This is Tell Me I'm Wrong. Alright, let's see here. Good morning, folks, and that's not the way to start the podcast because you could be listening at any time of the day or night. Good morning. What am I thinking? Okay, I can't even start. All right, here we go. Thank you for listening, folks. And first of all, I want to start off by apologizing, which is never a good way to start a podcast. But my inaugural show, the audio was absolutely terrible. And if you suffered through listening to that, well, thank you. That was, yeah. I'm sure probably nobody actually listened or watched that particular podcast. Now, maybe a few did on YouTube, but very few, I'm thinking. In any case, this week we are talking about the trolls. And this is what this show is about. The idea is to talk about and to break down into a societal ideal as to why we think the way we do about the things we do. And some of the topics may be controversial. This one's not so much. This one, we just want to kind of break down what it means to be a troll, what a troll truly is, and what we're going to do about it as a society in order to start to accept each other and talk about what it is to be a part of this human race in the modern technological age and what it's going to mean moving forward. So I want to start off a little bit by talking about what is a troll. A troll, by Merriam-Webster dictionary definition, there's many definitions. A transitive verb, to fish by trolling, which is one of my favorite. As a freshwater fisherman, brought up and raised by a freshwater fisherman, trolling. You're moving around slowly, trying to catch a fish. Think about that definition. To troll. To fish for by trolling. You are fishing. You are looking for something. You are on the prowl. Trolling can also mean to search in or at. Troll flea markets for bargains. Or prowl for nightclubs. So those are some different definitions of trolling as a transitive verb. Now, Google defines a troll in noun form as a mythical cave-dwelling being depicted in folklore as either a giant or dwarf, typically having a very ugly appearance. That's an applicable definition, I think, if you talk about trolls in terms of the internet. Very ugly connotation, troll. To call someone a troll, you're saying that they are an ugly person, that they are a mean, evil, bad, whatever person. So, I kind of look at that as a verb, to make deliberately offensive or provocative online postings with the aim of upsetting someone or eliciting an angry response from them. Now, of course, it goes back to fish by trailing a bait along behind a boat. I don't know what singing has to do with it, but to walk or stroll as well. And so, of course, those are some of the different definitions that you get from Google. And, of course, the almighty Urban Dictionary, which is my personal favorite dictionary. That's where I go for my definitions. The Urban Dictionary is always the most accurate, or at least the most interesting. One who posts a deliberately provocative message to a news group or message board with the intention of causing maximum disruption and argument. So, those are some basic definitions. Now, I think troll is used a little bit too widely in internet terms, and we're going to get into that here in a little bit. I'm going to talk to you about what a troll really is and what we deem to be a troll and what that effect has on us. Sometimes I think it minimizes what some of the things minimizes some of the things that happen on the internet by calling it trolling. By calling a person a troll, you are adding you're almost diminishing what it is they're doing to a level of, calling somebody silly or somebody goofy, when what they're really doing is far more dangerous and possibly hurt people. And that's not a troll. When you're hurting people, you're not a troll. You're something else. And we'll get into that. Now, when you talk about a troll, I like to talk about the psychology of trolling. And I actually kind of equate it with bullying. So I would categorize trolling as a form of bullying, mixed with an opinionated response that one would usually use only in select groups of known people. So if you know your friends and family and they know you pretty well, you're going to say what you feel and think in front of them far more freely than you would in public. And to say that none of us have any sort of prejudices, I don't care how progressive you are, you have prejudices. As you age, whether or not you like cheese is technically a prejudice. I'm prejudiced against tuna. I hate tuna. My wife loves it. Go figure. But that's actually a form of prejudice. Now, is it a bad prejudice or a good prejudice? That's for other people to decide upon. But society now deems what is good prejudice and bad prejudice on a micro scale, which, again, we're going to touch on that more as time goes on. When given the anonymity of the web, we start to feel like we're excused from social bounds of common courtesy and politeness. We start to say things that you wouldn't necessarily say in front of strangers, but you say them on the internet because they can't look you in the eye and you can't see that pain in their eyes. And you can't hear that pain in their voice. You can't hear that anger in their voice when they retort to you. And one of the things that you start learning in the corporate world is you can't read emotion on a page. So you have to be careful what you say in your emails. It's very important. I've gotten in trouble more than once. Some of you out there who've worked with me know that my emails, I didn't mean to yell at you. The all caps was just because caps lock was on. Sorry. That happens. You can't determine emotion from words on a page unless the person writing those words is extremely good at conveying emotion in word. Now, one of the things that I started doing here was looking at different things on the internet. I found an article on the Psychology Today website by a Dr. Jennifer Goldbeck. It was posted September 18th, 2014 in the Your Online Secrets section. And the title of it is Internet Trolls Are Narcissists, Psychopaths, and Sadists. I think on the whole that's an exaggeration. Now, I read through this article, and it's got some very in-depth, it's a short article, but it's got some very in-depth sort of psychological, readings into what makes a troll. But I think on a whole that not only is that an exaggeration, but the idea of trolling is something that's not new. It's a new term. It's a relatively new term to call someone a troll who is pestering you for the purpose of exacerbating your emotions. That's not a new thing. That's an existing thing that's existed for millennia. Those people have always been out there, and many of them have been willing to do it in your face. There are plenty of us. You've probably met someone in your life who was more than willing to tell you what was on their mind, whether or not it was politically correct, and whether or not they were in known company or not. So that's not a new thing. Now, do you define trolling as just looking for trouble or actually trying to create trouble? Because those are also, I think, different things we need to talk about when we talk about a troll. When you're talking about someone who's out there on the web watching videos, going to Facebook pages, going on Tumblr, going to message boards, getting on Reddit, and actually just reading things and then exploding their brain out about what they think into that post. I think they're just looking for trouble. I think they're just out there looking to espouse their opinions. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. We all have those opinions. We all have our own opinions. Some of us are more free and willing to give those opinions, and that's the point of this show. But my thought is a troll is just a person trying to get a rise out of another person. And the term troll doesn't necessarily apply to the sadistic. Now, when you're creating trouble, that's a whole different subject. And we're going to get into that a little bit when I start talking about the Twit network specifically, because I think they are one of the favorite whipping boys of the internet troll nowadays. And I'm going to stop right there and say most of the people who are going after Leo Laporte and the Twit network are not trolls. They're not. They actually fall more on the sadistic side of things. They attack. To attack is not to troll. And we'll come back to that. But maybe something that we need to talk about a little bit. And actually, I'm going to stop right here and go with it. I'm going to go with the Twit network. Now that I'm looking at my dog, this is the point at which I said I was going to do it. So, hey, I'll get better at this, folks, I promise. Leo Laporte. I've been watching Leo Laporte since early ZDTV days. Leo has always worn his emotions on his sleeve. He is a broadcasting professional, and you can see it in his voice. You can see it in his on-air persona, and you can hear it in his voice. He's been doing it since he was a very young person in his mid-20s at a radio station at a college somewhere. And I've heard him say that. I can't specifically tell you where he started or when he started. I've heard it, and I know he said it. The problem is that Leo has spent so much of his life on the radio, on TV, in front of people, that the two have started to meld together for him. It's no longer Leo at work and Leo at home, like most of us are. Leo is Leo, no matter where Leo is. Leo has even been said, I'm me, warts and all. This is what I am. Leo hasn't, not that he never learned, he's forgotten what it means to leave home at home and work at work. And because of that, because he started a network in which the premise, the idea was audience involvement, the idea was to bring everybody together in a community of tech nerds and build this awesome, great thing, which he built, and then they turned on him. They turned on him because Leo started it with this intent of being this clean thing, this clean room environment that just can't exist. You're talking about technology nerds, people who play video games on a daily basis, people who would rather be in front of their computers than out playing a sport. Me personally, I get away from this thing as often as I can. I try to go fishing and I try to get out. I'm not athletic, but I am someone who enjoys the outdoors, and I enjoy turning off technology. Most of these people don't. They spend their entire lives in front of some kind of screen. And because of that, they become enthralled in what it is that they're watching, what it is that they're seeing. They become so attached to a person like Leo that they begin to feel they know him. You don't know him. You don't know Leo. You haven't met Leo. You haven't spent a day in Leo's shoes. You don't know what it's like to be him. Now, I'm not defending him entirely, because Leo has said and done some things on air that, quite frankly, anybody else could and should be fired for. He's been offensive more than once, and that brings me back to the ZDTV. I think it was ZDTV, or maybe it was Tech TV days. There was a point at which Leo was in some sort of contract negotiation, and he brought it up on the air. And my thought at that time was, wow, that's a little unprofessional. That's not something I think you should be talking about on the air. That has nothing to do with the technology that I know and love. That has nothing to do with Linux coding. That has nothing to do with the ultimate gaming machine. Why is he talking about his contract? I don't care. And not only that, I thought it was a little underhanded of him to use his audience that way. If he was trying to elicit us to write in or call in or do something to the network to force their hand in signing his contract the way he wanted it, that's not the way to do it. It's not professional. It's not fair to his audience, and I thought that back then. It's not fair to ask your people who follow you to go to bat for you for something that doesn't affect them, other than they don't get to watch you anymore on TV if you're not there. It's just wholly unprofessional. That's a bit like I know I'm going to get fired, so I go around to all my friends at work and tell them to go to my boss and ask them not to fire me. Well, if I deserve to get fired, I deserve to get fired. That's just how it works. Now, when you talk about what's happened as a result of that, now you've got these websites, and I'm not going to mention the website. There's a website dedicated specifically to recording everything that Leo Laporte says and does. And if there's even the slightest negative connotation to what he says, it's put into this rolling YouTube video of all of his faux pas. Leo records everything on Twit, or he did in the past, and he's stopping that. He's stopping that for the wrong reasons. The problem is that he started off trying to police it. He started off trying to say, this is what you can do and can't do. And they took it to the extreme in the chat room. And I'm going to bash that chat room right now, because I'm sorry. Those mods from day one were way overzealous. Now, they may have been doing it because that's what they were told to do by Leo. Either way, to kick people and to banish people from an online chat room that maybe 15% of his entire audience even go to or even know exist, and to attack them and banish them and kick them out for cursing or for relatively innocuous statements about appearances and things like that, that's unacceptable. Now, yes, now I'm going off on a bit of a tangent here because this show's about trolling, but I want to talk about what caused the trolling problem with Twit. It's not entirely the fault of the audience. When you create a police state, you immediately incite rebellion. There's going to be rebellion against that. And for Leo to say, oh, the trolls won. No, the sadists won, but you created those sadists. You created the monster by trying to police the public, by trying to create a police state. Dan is the worst of them. And Dan, I don't know you personally, buddy, but you have kicked me for saying, wow, Leo looks great today. Interesting. I don't know why you kicked me. But that's, again, we're off on a tangent here. The people, I'm going to come back, I'm going to reel it back in now. Because the people who are actually doing what they're doing to Leo are worse than Leo's ever been. Because even if Leo says stupid things, we all say stupid things. Now, maybe yes, he should know there's a camera on him. Maybe he should just be aware that he shouldn't try to pull up pictures, personal pictures, or even have personal pictures on a device that's connected to a camera or the ability to capture said device. I'm just saying, most people who are on the air live think about these things, especially people with Leo's kind of tenure. They need to know this. They need to understand these things. And quite frankly, if you were a newscaster and you accidentally showed pictures of your spouse in a compromising photograph on air, your career is over at that point. Unless you actually happen to be the one signing the payroll checks. So go figure. I will continue to always watch Leo. I love Leo. Leo, from a professional standpoint, from a journalistic standpoint, nobody has the journalistic integrity that Leo Laporte has. The man has spent millions trying to make sure that things like reviews and product knowledge and things that he does on air are as clean and as correct as possible. He tries everything he can think of to make that network be what the fans want it to be, to super serve his audience, as he says. That is exactly what he needs to do, is super serve his audience. And that the chat room's part of that. And I'm sorry, closing the chat room is not the answer. Allowing the chat room to exist, and yes, maybe it needs to be self-moderated, but it needs to still be at least hosted by Twit. And maybe the moderators need to be there, but maybe they need to lay back and just watch for the basics. Watch for threats. Watch for angry posts. Watch for the extremes. But saying the S word in a chat room, I'm sorry, that doesn't get you kicked. That doesn't get you banned. The Twit network will always be one of my favorites, and I will never stop watching, and I'll never stop watching Leo. And just the same way that I discovered Leo, the same way I discovered Tom Merritt, I will always be fans of these people that bring the technology that I love into my life. Now, I'm going to step off of Twit a little bit here because I've been stomping on Twit. I've been stomping on Leo. And I don't want to be that because I'm not a troll. I'm not a person who wants to attack anybody. Like I said, Leo Laporte is one of the most respected broadcasters in the nation when it comes to technology. And I will always respect him. And if I ever meet the guy, which I've met him once, I will shake his hand and say, "Good to see you again, Leo." And if he's mad about this podcast and about things that I've said on it, I invite him to contact me. Please, if you are upset with me, Leo, contact me. I'll talk to you. Explain, and I'll explain myself. I've sent Leo tweets. I've sent him emails. Usually, I'll step back and I'll say I probably sent one that was a little less respectful than it should have been. But I've always tried to be respectful and adviseful. Whether or not my advice was asked for was questionable. But when he says things to his on-air hosts that any other boss would get sued over, live on essentially international television, more or less, whether or not you want to call it Twit television, I watch it on my TV, that starts to become questionable activity, and quite frankly, Leo doesn't have a boss other than his wife. And I don't know if she gets on him about these things. I'm sure she does. But he needs to have a boss. He needs to have somebody tell him that's not acceptable. And if you do it again, there's going to be consequences. Well, now he's suffering those consequences. And I'm sorry, some of them, although all of them are not, some of them are warranted. I want to move on to some other subjects here now. I want to talk about one of the other things that happens quite a lot on the internet. You've got people like Veronica Belmont out there. There's a few of them. Veronica is probably one of my favorite technology podcasters because she's the most open, and she's not just really a technology podcaster. She's also an actress. She's also she's also a writer. She's an intelligent person from the top to bottom. I've tweeted at her. I've said things to her that are a little probably off the cuff, but never insulting. And she's one of several out there. And right now names escape me. I can't think of her name, but she was in Eureka. She's another one that does quite a lot of podcasts. She does podcasts with Veronica. But anyhow, this stalker thing that goes on the internet, these people aren't trolls either. That's not trolling. And I'm talking about this quite a lot because I want to distinguish what I think a troll is. You know, when you think about what is actually creating the troll and fueling the troll, it's the constant increase of what some deem to be the over-amplification of political correctness. And again, it comes back to the whole thing I talked about with Twit. When you start to police everything everybody says and does, there's rebellion. A lot of things in the media, from taking down Confederate flags to insulting people who don't choose to change their Facebook picture, to you don't change your Facebook picture to the cause of the weak or whatever. Society, and more so the media, put pressure on us to conform, to think the way they think, to think the way that society would require us to think based on new social norms that are constantly changing. But we don't all think the same thing, and if we did, we wouldn't be people. Now, that brings me, it's sort of strange to talk about that in conjunction with the stalking, but the way I tie it in here is we want to have a personal relationship with the people that we see on the screen. We want to converse with these people. And I converse with some of the people that I listen to. I'm a follower of independent things. I watch TV shows that with actors on them that I'll never meet or talk to, but a lot of what I watch and consume are musical artists and podcasters that are reachable, partially because their audiences aren't as big. I'll never talk to Tim McGraw. If I do, it'll be some chance meeting, or maybe I'll get a backstage pass, but I won't really talk to him. It'll be a, hi, nice to meet you. Yeah, hey, you look good. Hey, it was nice meeting you. Have a good day. He'll never think about me again. But guys like Ray Scott, guys like Tom Merritt, guys like Padre, Father Robert Balliser, these are people who I converse with on Twitter on a semi-regular basis. I've even got a couple of email addresses for these people, and I converse back and forth with them. Society says that I shouldn't try to bother them. Society says that I shouldn't communicate with them because they are public entities. Don't bother them. Don't try to annoy them. There's so many other people out there who are doing the same thing, trying to get their attention, trying to get a minute of their time. I'm not trying to get a minute of anybody's time. I'm trying to just hold conversations. In fact, part of what I'm doing right here is because of some of these people. Every one of these people have influenced me in my opinions, and why I'm doing this podcast is because of these people, because of my conversations with them and starting to understand how and why I should do this. But where I stop short of is trying to find out where these people live, trying to send them things or get things from them, or trying to influence them personally. I send Tom audio clips all the time because I love hearing my voice on his show. But that's here nor there. You don't do a podcast because you hate your voice. By the way, I do a great announcer voice. Anyhow, these things are socially, in the middle. To try to contact one of these people can be skewed towards stalking if you're not careful. I'm not trying to stalk anybody. I'm trying to talk to someone. Where you start skewing in another direction is where you start saying, I'm in love with XYZ person, and I'm going to try to get them to love me, or like me, or be my friend. Let me make it very clear. I don't consider myself to be Tom Merritt's friend. Tom Merritt doesn't know me. Tom Merritt has had a handful of conversations, probably about a dozen or so, with me over the course of about 6 years. Online only. Never even met the guy, never shook his hand. Met Ray Scott once, about 12, 13 years ago. Guy doesn't know me, but we joke constantly on Twitter and on Facebook. If I were to try to get Tom's address and then suddenly show up at his house and say, man, it's great to meet you, that would scare the living tar out of him. And it would cause him to have second thoughts about what it is he does for a living. Well, these things have happened, but primarily to female celebrities, and that irks me to no end. As men, we have a certain responsibility in this world to not only be respectful, but to be good people. Now, I'm not saying that women don't have that same responsibility, but men specifically, we are supposed to be the rocks. We are supposed to be. Now, this is a societal sort of norm. Again, I'm coming back to that. But we have to be in control of our faculties, because if we're not, we can create a lot of problems. Now, a good friend of mine recently posted something on Facebook that I want to read to you. It's kind of long. Humans are stuck in duality. Until we can move past it, there will always be the perspective of right and wrong. and humans will always act upon this perspective. The majority says that what is right and what is wrong changes over time. Love and fear are the polarities that drive our actions. What's hard for most humans to understand is that we transcribe our experiences in different ways. Even if we have the exact same experiences, when you used a gun, you found respect. Now this is referring to me talking about when I was a child. I was taught to use weapons because my father was a police officer and they were in the house. I had to be taught to respect them. Because of duality, some will not. It's the ones who do not find what you found that cause people to have fear. And there goes the cycle of duality. I don't know if I think in terms of right or wrong anymore. I think more about cause and effect. I use prevention to adjust the future. If we didn't make cars go fast, would people get speeding tickets? What would the world be like? Cops have hard jobs, and we need to do more for the good cops. And he goes on to compliment me on my video. But that speaks specifically, in a lot of ways, about what we talk about with societal norms, with trolling specifically. Now, coming back a little bit here, I want to talk about, what it is to think separately from what society does. Now, good things have happened throughout history. The abolishment of slavery in America is one of them. There were people who were separate from that particular opinion. And there are people who live today who are still racists. There are people who live today who have opinions that society doesn't want to hear. These are negative opinions. And I'm going to be very, very careful here because I'm going to very clearly state I'm not one of them. But you need to understand that these people have the right to their opinion. As long as they're not hurting you, they're not hurting anyone. And that goes both ways. I can have an opinion about something without it hurting you. If I take action on that opinion that negatively affects you, at that point, you have every right to attack me. You have every right to defend yourself. You don't have the right to come after me because I have an opinion. Now, you can disagree with me. There's a difference. You can always tell me I'm wrong. You can always tell me that, hey, John, you shouldn't own guns because those guns are dangerous. Those guns have the capability of getting into the wrong hands and hurting somebody. I have retorts for that. But those are my opinions. You can troll me. You can say, you're an idiot, man. How can you possibly believe that that's safe? Okay, well, if I'm an idiot, explain to me how I'm an idiot. If you can't explain why I'm an idiot in clear, informative, educated terminology, you are just trolling. You're just trying to get a rise out of me. You're just trying to make me mad. Great, make me mad. It's going to be pretty hard. I don't get mad easy. Ask anyone who knows me. But that's a troll. That is saying, man, I hate you. Okay, why do you hate me? I don't know. I don't like your face. Okay, well, this is the one I was born with. I can get plastic surgery. Can you afford to fix your opinion? Can you afford to tell me why your opinion is what it is? Because I can tell you why my opinion is what it is. I can tell you why I think what I think about everything. Whether or not that opinion is a valid one and whether or not my argument is valid is certainly up for debate. But I will always try to explain my opinion and why it is what it is. One of the phrases that I always hated as a kid, and I even hate as today when a boss tells me, because I said so. I want explanations for everything. I want to know why something is the way it is, and I want to know the answer. So, you have that right And society is always going to change its paradigm as to what is right and wrong. And that's where I talk about what David said, is that as time moves forward, we're always going to, by the way, that's my friend's name, David Jacques. I wasn't really trying to hide his name earlier. Hopefully he's okay with me mentioning his name. Maybe I'll edit that part out. That's what I talked about. That's what I want to talk about with my friend's quote, David, where he talked about, society's paradigm, society always changing. What we deem as right and wrong will be different in 30 years. In 30 years, someone may go back and watch this podcast and say, "Wow, what an inbred, backwards society we used to be in. This guy is full of nothing but hate and negativity." But that's not what I'm trying to espouse. I'm trying to espouse a emotional response with an intellectual connotation. I'm trying to get us to talk. And I'm trying to do so in such a way that we can move past what we call trolling and start to understand what a troll truly is. Now, I was raised to say, I was raised in the South, and I was raised with this saying constantly drilled into my head: if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. In a way, that still rattles around in the back of my head, but I've taken it and I've molded it into, don't say mean things without proper basis and education for what it is you're trying to say. Don't say something against somebody's opinion without having a logical reason for doing so. I hate oranges. Why? I just hate oranges. Why do you hate oranges? I don't know, I just don't like them. No, that doesn't work for me. I hate oranges because they're acidic. That makes sense. The acid upsets my stomach. The acid erodes the enamel on my teeth. That is a logical explanation for why I hate oranges. I hate oranges because they're orange is not a reason. And that, oranges are inferior. Inferior to what? Apples. Well, that's oranges and apples, literally. Or apples and oranges, however you want to say that. Now, when you talk about trolling, you're talking about saying things that are exactly that are saying something mean without having some sort of reason for saying it. So you, for instance, and I've done it. I'll give you a couple of examples. One intentional that I did very recently, and one that was completely unintentional. Very recently, I was reading a story on Facebook about a firefighter who attacked and stopped an armed robber. His firefighting partner his partner mentioned something on Facebook. He said, "That's my partner." "Yeah, buddy." Something to that effect. In response, one of the other posters on Facebook responded with something horribly misspelled, but said something to the effect of, only gay people have partners. My response, and this is a completely trolly response, was to say, in one simple word, "You're an idiot." And I did it as an experiment in a way. I did it with the intention of trying to draw out replies. What I got was 32 likes. No retorts, nobody disagreed with me, nobody called me out for calling that person an idiot. I had no right to call that person an idiot, and I actually messaged him on Facebook and apologized and said that it was in fact an experiment, and I was sorry for drawing him into that in such a negative way. Because that's not the way we need to talk to each other. I disagree with that person's outlook, and I disagree with the way that person went about it. But I can say, I disagree with that statement, sir. I don't think that's the way you should look at this, and here's why. But no, that's not what society rewards. Not on the internet, not on the internet. Society rewards negativity. I called him an idiot, and I got 32 likes. And there's only about 10 replies on that entire post. It's not something I feel good about. It's not something I like when I look at society. And it's something we need to learn to overcome. I would never walk up to a person in public and say, wow, you can't seem to get your keys in your door. You're an idiot. And walk away and say nothing else. But people have no problem doing that on the internet. If you wouldn't do it to a person standing at their car trying to figure out how a key works, you can think it. You might even say it to a friend, but don't say it to their face. Don't be mean for the sake of being mean, because we all are emotional people and we all hate being called stupid. Now, the second time I did it rather unintentionally. One of my other favorite podcasts, The Cord Killers, which is, again, it's Tom Merritt and it's Brian Brushwood. The premise of that particular podcast is the idea, at least loosely, of watching what you want, where you want, when you want to watch it. And the name of the show is Cord Killers. The idea behind the name, it does not entirely resonate with what the show's purpose is. The idea behind the name, to say you're a cord killer, is in effect to say you're a cord cutter. You're disconnecting from the wires in your life, from cable, from whatever, basically from cable. Getting your content almost solely over the internet, which oddly in most cases still involves wires. But that's okay. You are not cutting the cord by keeping cable, at least in your, in the most literal form of taking the name of that show. Well, I posted something on Twitter that said, one of the hosts has a TV show on a national network, and the other one can't seem to get his wife off cable. That was pretty negative. It's pretty unintellectual of me to say that, but I said it. And I got direct responses from both hosts, one of which didn't seem very happy about it. And I don't blame him, because the way I said that, when I said it, and the fact that I replied both of them in the tweet was, and can be deemed as trolling. I was trying to get their attention. I don't deny it. I crave attention. We all do. It's what trolling is. It's attention. I'm not sitting here doing this podcast on video and on audio because I hate attention. Nobody who wants to be heard and seen hates attention. We all love attention. Especially if it's positive attention. We don't like negative attention. And what I gave them, though, was food for thought. And that's actually, I realized it about 15 minutes after I posted it, what that was. I realized that it was me, trying to get attention, but it was me also trying to put out there an idea that we need to look beyond the base levels of what it is we do and what we say. And it actually caused them to have a very lively discussion on the show about my tweet. And I feel it brought forward a new sort of paradigm in the show where they focused even harder on trying to espouse the multiple ways in which you can consume content. So even trolling can be useful, especially unintentional trolling. Now, if you just call somebody an idiot, that's not quite right. But can you call what I did trolling? Now, yes, I was trying to get attention, but I was also backing it up with a pseudo-informed opinion. So maybe it wasn't really trolling. Maybe it was. I was trying to elicit an emotional response, and I got one. But I was also trying to bring about change. And when you post something that has a monicum of truth in it, even if it's got a negative connotation, you're not necessarily trolling. You are trying to affect change. When I say I don't like this, and here's why, that's not entirely trolling. When you say this is stupid and end it with this is stupid. Why is it stupid? Because it's stupid and you're an idiot. That is the worst kind of trolling. Now, I hope that this show hasn't been too terribly all over the place. I've tried to collect my thoughts here. I'm working on making things a little bit more mainstream, a little bit, to make things flow better. I've got to work on my techniques, and I'm going to get better. It starts with this show, but it moves forward with this show. So I need your responses. I need you to email me at tmiwrong@gmail.com. Tweet me on Twitter. I'm TextJeb, TXJEB on Twitter. Visit my Patreon page, TMIW, patreon.com/TMIW. Let me know. Let me know what you think about the podcast. And if you can afford to pitch me $1, I'd appreciate it. We are just trying to get this show off the floor here, and I want to be able to provide you with the best possible content, and that means that I need a little bit of help here and there. Right now, if you look at my Patreon page, you'll see that I am working 2 jobs in addition to doing this podcast. So it gets hairy, it gets interesting. Now, I'm not saying that I want you to replace my income. I'm saying I want you to fund this podcast. I want you to tell me I'm right, or tell me that you like hearing me say wrong things all the time with your dollars. The value for value model. Tom Merritt, Adam Carolla, all these other people out there who are pushing this value for value model, thank you. Thank you for opening up Patreon. Thank you for opening up a new world to the independent creators out there. Because the independents that create the best content. The guy who has no strings on him, who has no sponsors telling him what he can and cannot say, who has no boss telling him what he can and cannot say, has the ability to say what he feels and thinks without the necessary restraints that come with the acceptance of others. I can say what I think without offending a sponsor. I can say what I think without offending my boss, because my boss is you. And if you don't like what I say, you can fire me by stopping your Patreon flow. But if you like what I say, or even if you don't like what I say and you want to be able to contribute and to tell me I'm wrong, then tell me I'm at least informative, and tell me I am your source for, at least if nothing else, a little bit of amusement by my rantings. Go to patreon.com/TMIW and visit all of your favorite podcasts and their sponsors. In closing thoughts, if you resort to following someone around to find out where they live so you can try to foster a personal relationship with that person, you, my friend, are a stalker. I have formed some conversational relationships with a few people, and I have formed some conversational relationships with a few people I consider to be minor celebrities, because I consider them to be intelligent people. I converse with them, and yes, I even troll them a little, but that's the extent of it. If those people ever decided that they want to become closer friends and get to know me, it's on them. Don't try to become real friends with people you know online only, or through podcasts or other celebrities. There's thousands of us, and we will overrun them if we try. If you intentionally watch every word a person says for the opportunity to pounce or attack, you're a bully and a narcissist. Nobody likes either of those things. Get over yourself. And more importantly, if you don't like a person or what they say, get over them. Attacking for the sake of attacking is stupid. Look, I don't really care for Leo Laporte as a person. I knew this in 1996, and not much has changed. I do think he knows what he's talking about, and in most instances, I think he knows how to do what he does very well. I respect his journalistic integrity, and I've even met him, but I don't ever want to have a beer with a guy. That having been said, I do now, always have, and always will be a fan of the Twit Network and its hosts, and yes, I will troll them, because a troll is not the same thing as a narcissist. A troll is basically any person trying to get their opinion off their chest, whether intentionally or otherwise. Spouting an opinion, even if it's for the sake of inciting rage and frustration. Trolling, in its purest form, is innocuous. It hurts nobody. If I called you an idiot, it makes you mad, but that's it. Mad doesn't truly hurt you. We need some trolling because we need to be told we're wrong at times. We need bullies to learn to stand up for ourselves. But we don't need crazy people to knock on our doors because they didn't like what we said on the internet. And we don't need people who think they're in love with us following us around, trying to get us to accept their gifts and flowers. Thank you for listening. Until next week. Okay. All right, how long is that? Is it really over an hour? It's 45 minutes long. All right. A few, I'm thinking. In any case, this week we are talking about the trolls, and this is what this show is about. The idea is to talk about and to break down. Thank you for listening, folks. And first of all, I want to start off by apologizing, which is never a good way to start a podcast, but my inaugural show, the audio was absolutely terrible, and if you suffered through listening to that, well, thank you. That was, yeah. I'm sure probably nobody actually listened or watched that particular podcast. Now, maybe a few did on YouTube, but very few, I'm thinking. In any case, this week we are talking about the trolls, and online postings with the aim of upsetting someone or eliciting an angry response from them. Now, of course, it goes back to fish by trailing a bait along behind a boat. I don't know what singing has to do with it, but to walk or stroll as well. And so, of course, those are some of the different definitions that you get from Google. And, of course, the almighty Urban Dictionary, which is my personal favorite dictionary. It's where I go for my definitions. The Urban Dictionary is always the most accurate, or at least the most interesting. One who posts a deliberately provocative message to a news group or message board with the intention of causing maximum disruption and argument. So, those are some basic definitions. Now, I think troll is used a little bit too widely in internet terms, and we're going to get into that here in a little bit. I'm going to talk to you about what a troll really is and what we deem to be a troll and what that effect has on us. Sometimes I think it minimizes some of the things that happen on the internet by calling it troll.